This is the What Do You Know show hosted by Rio, and I'm here with my audio engineer, Griff, also better known as 4.0. And today we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about what do you know about 4.0.
It's funny because I'm actually not better known as 4.0.
I know.
I think there's like 3 people that actually occasionally call me 4.0. I'm like,
I found that to be ironic, kind of why I said it like that.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, let's get into it. Who is 4.0? Where does the name come from? And is it different than Aaron Griffin?
Yeah, see, that's a fun question. So, I mean, we have to kind of dive into the history of the Skytop a bit. You know, as you know.
What's the Skytop? Tell the people.
The Skytop Collective. It's a real cool conglomerate of RT fellows, originally consisting of Elijah Pose, a.k.a. Breeze, myself, and Young Rio the God over here.
Bro, chill. I praise the Most High.
You know, we were young middle schoolers at Christmas Addicts. We all had a love for music. We all had a love for the arts. We all had a love for anime, and at the time, we all had a love for fashion, in particular, a brand of shoes called Super. Mm-hmm. And one of their line items was the Skytop. I think I bought the Skytop 2 or the Skytop 3. Yeah. It was let me think. It was like,
I'm pretty sure you got the 2.
I think it was the 2. And it wasn't like the only high top shoe I've ever like bought and worn on a regular basis. It's a skater shoe, which is funny because I can't skate.
Because they're so comfortable, man. Super's top of the line.
It's funny though because I thought they were a very uncomfortable shoe.
Oh, really?
But they were so fucking cool. Mine were like, I don't know what you'd call the material, but they were sort of like glossy and it like reflected light, but it was black, and the bottom of it was like this red gum. So I thought I was Vader in that shit. Walking around with my Supers. It was a sick shoe.
Isn't it funny how close and certain things would make you feel so good?
Absolutely.
So hot?
Absolutely. So it was the 3 of us. We had Supers, we had anime, we had music, we had the arts. You know, even back then, you were doing the
making my
jewelry.
own jewelry.
You were doing all kinds of stuff. And so
I would just be in my basement going through junk and making it unique pieces of accessories.
Yeah. I mean,
hadn't gotten into clothes at the time.
We were a collection of youth with maybe not strange or, but we had our hobbies and they all sort of co-aligned into the Skytop Collective. Yep. And so Breeze sort of kind of hinted at the name. He was like, well, I don't know. I think 4.0 would be a cool sort of production name for you. But
why though?
Since you're number 1 in the class.
There you go.
And you almost have a 4.0. It's funny. I actually had I think at the time it was a 4.1 or something like that.
Okay.
Which I didn't think I could get, but I ended up getting it, and a 4.0 was born. Enough said.
So Elijah, he gives you this name, 4.0. We're in the collective, but what does 4.0 do in the collective? Tell the people.
Yeah. So 4.0 is, I mean, pretty much hands down all the technical stuff. I wasn't originally an audio engineer,
right? You are now.
When we met, I was just a music enthusiast. I didn't know anything. You know, Breeze. When I met Breeze, I can remember shit like it was yesterday. It was the downstairs basement, where the lockers and stuff are, Christmas Addicts underneath. I want to say it was connected
you're talking about like under the gym.
Yeah. So it was It was random. It was like the middle of the day. It was like maybe it was like maybe 10 o'clock or something. It was like in between classes, I think. It was right in between where the 7th and 8th grade gym classes come and go. So this was like when I first started at Christmas Addicts, and randomly a cipher started up between Breeze and I think it was B-Rad.
Yeah, shout out to Don Chambers.
They just were like battle rapping in the basement, and there
You're saying that's the first time you saw it?
That was the first time I saw it.
Okay, because they did it quite frequently.
Yeah.
And man, was I next to Elijah that day?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I was standing next, because let me give the people some background here. Brandon B-Rad, now known as Don Chambers, a grade older than us, and he was, I would say, far more popular than Elijah and I.
Maybe.
Well, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
The crowd that he hung out with, Foam Gang and all that stuff, Jamario, Oscar, all those boys, we all like looked up to them. But Elijah was so sick that they had to recognize, and it got to a point where they were doing these ciphers.
Well, that's my point exactly.
I'm just gonna quickly say that the crowd automatically was on, at the time, B-Rad's side.
Yeah.
And so it'd be like me and a couple of our homies, like we were like 3 against 15. You know what I mean?
And now that I'm saying this, because I remember Elijah from 7th grade. This was actually 8th grade year for us. Like none of that mattered. I just remember the cipher. I remember the circle of people, and I remember thinking about how weird it was for the 2 people that were in the circle to be like there, you know, because like I said, I knew Elijah, like I had seen him around class, but I never thought much of him. But when I don't know,
he's kind of unremarkable,
and I think it was a similar feeling for everybody else there in that cipher. Seeing that it was like nothing about high school mattered. It was like this was something different, and I saw that and I felt that, and so. I mean, from then on out, I think we've been friends, like all of us, because of like moments like that, and me, you know, going out of my way, which isn't something I normally do, and telling him like, man, that was awesome. Yeah. And I'd be like interested in doing something like this with you in the future, and that from then on, I started getting interested in music and, you know, just looking at how he made his music, and I kind of integrated myself into his life because I was so interested in what it was that he was doing. Okay. So he definitely put me on game to the music, and then it just helped that I had also met Matt Wilson, who ended up being like music mentor for a couple years at that point. So everything sort of just aligned.
Music and life too. I mean, he taught us the whole phrase work smart, not hard.
Oh yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So now you're in the cut. You're starting to really integrate yourself with Elijah's musical journey. Tell us about the ramen section.
Man, I don't know if I can speak a whole lot to the ramen section on my part, because
I thought you helped.
No, I did. I was there. I think I kind of consider myself more of a witness than I was an actual because I didn't produce anything.
Tell us about it, man.
So ramen section was Elijah. I mean, it was Elijah's first. I mean, it was his debut mixtape. His first.
Okay,
real
we've been
work.
calling him Elijah, but what's his rap?
Breeze,
Breeze.
Breeze was putting it down, and I mean. We went from watching stuff on YouTube to doing this ourselves. We got microphones.
The Yeti.
The Yeti. I don't remember what interface we recorded on. If we were just doing it from the laptop.
Oh, the interface.
But I do remember we were recording out of his mom's closet at the old apartment.
Rest in peace.
Pretty much whenever we could, we would get beats off YouTube. You know, I had the little YouTube, the MP3. We would just bounce them down real quick. We'd throw them in. The DAW, like I said, I don't know if it was Ableton or if it was GarageBand or what it was now. It might have been what was that one that B-Rad was using back in the day? I remember the color.
And he just kept getting the free demos.
Yeah, like every 15 days he would refresh it. Damn, I can't remember
what it is either. Yeah. But anyway.
But it could have been that. But I mean, any way that we could record it, we would. And I might have done some of the mixing back then. I was more into trying to produce than I was trying to actually mix audio back then, because I mean that was just more interesting to me. But
and mixing is more nuanced. It takes a lot of time and practice.
Absolutely. But I was definitely, in some capacity, a recording engineer for him back then, because if he's in the closet, somebody's got to be outside the closet. But yeah, like I was definitely witness to that, and I mean, for the both of us, I think the ramen section was definitely it was very monumentous. Yeah, it was proof.
How rewarding was it?
I wouldn't say it was rewarding. Oh yeah, but it's always something to look back on. And that's kind of why it's such a big deal, because after that we were producing pretty much all original stuff. And so you could look back on the ramen section, and the sounds are cool, and the bars are dope.
Oh, amazing!
But all of that was like we were just kind of scraping pieces from here and there. Not too different from how production works, but it was like I said, YouTube. We were pulling beats off YouTube. We were pulling samples off of
I hear you.
a regular show.
Yeah, which and there's that comedian on YouTube. I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name either, but I know which cut you're talking about.
Yeah. By the way, links will be in the description below. Hopefully we'll have a link shown on the screen right here at the bottom. And you can't get the ramen section anymore. There's only one way to get it, and that's ordering a USB full of Breeze's entire discography for $10.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's unreleased music, special cuts, some behind the scenes content. I think you guys would really enjoy it if you're interested. And the reason why you would want to get that USB is because it shows the entire progression. It's from this Roots 7th grade ramen section to where we are now, man. That must have been almost 10 years ago at this point.
Oh, don't even say
almost,
that, man.
I think it says it was like dropped in 2011 or 2010.
Sounds about right.
So
about right.
So anyway, not to cut you off there, but so it goes from the ramen section, and also I have to tell the people that the first song off of the ramen section that he dropped on Facebook was a J Electronica beat, Exhibit A.
That's my favorite off of that.
Yeah, it's actually the intro song too.
Yeah.
And I love J Electronica, as I do still.
Yeah.
But I'm like, holy shit, who is this? Why is Elijah rapping over a J Electronica beat right here?
And he killed it.
He killed it. He killed it. Absolutely
13,
killed it.
14 years old. It was sick.
If J Elec heard it, he would have had a lot of respect for a kid like that.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, can you remember much about the reception of the ramen section or anything post-drop?
I wasn't really caught up in what people thought of it. I mean,
I can't remember much of a... I know there are people around us that listened to it, but
really?
It didn't really start to gain traction, and the reason why I asked that until Sophomore Notes and Ballads,
okay,
Breeze's second project, because that was actually trending locally on Twitter when he dropped it.
Really?
And I know you had a much bigger role to play in that because you were actually featured vocally on a couple of the tracks on Sophomore Notes.
That was fun. Doing a few of the skits on there, and I think that was the first time I actually heard my voice recorded, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, man, I sound like a fucking weirdo.
Man, I love it. I love it. You actually don't sound too dissimilar from what you sound.
No, I kind of sound the same, and now I'm used to hearing my voice recorded, so now it's like, man, I sound like...
Go over there and talk to that girl.
Talk to that girl, Elijah. You got to man up and talk to the girl. Yeah, I think I'd give him the same advice today, but I mean, he would easily go and talk to any girl without any prompt needed.
And I think the cool thing about, I mean, I would say the Sophomore Notes and Ballads dropped maybe a year or two after the ramen section.
Yeah, it was.
And there started, I don't believe anything was ripped off of YouTube.
No, that's what I mean.
Beats, produced beats. It's a
huge
leap.
That's why I think when you asked me about the reception of the ramen section, for me, especially in the duo that was Breeze and me, I was in a rapid state of learning after the ramen section happened, because I think part of it was that I felt like I wanted to do more, but I didn't know anything. I was fresh new to it, and so I had to figure out recording. I had to figure out DAWs. I had to figure out signal flow and what compressors were and what reverb was, all of these things that now people ask me about, and I'm like, yeah, man, if you want to use a return track, it's pretty much the same as a bus track. It's just any old thing. And at 14 years old, I'd spend 3 days on one song just trying to figure out what all the effects would sound like, just everything.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so by the time we got to Sophomore Notes and Ballads, it was original production, across the board, original bars. I mean, obviously, because he's never needed anybody to help him writing.
No,
but he had so much influence from just life and
Fiasco,
girls and
Nas,
all the stuff that was going on around us at the time.
Yeah,
but we recorded everything ourselves, we mixed everything ourselves, and I think he definitely had somebody else master it. But I mean, that was a thing up until just recently, where we were having people help us master, because that was that's a whole 5 to 10 years of learning to do something else.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, it was rapid learning, and so I was always just in the cut. What's the next thing to figure out? How can it help us on the next project?
And I think what's really cool about it, and getting back to why I asked the question about the reception of the ramen section, is that it didn't reverberate like the drops after it. But what it did do is set Elijah up for a lot of really cool features. E-Jazz featured on the ramen section, and that's another, for all you E-Jazz fans out there, very rare early cut on the ramen section with E-Jazz. But Theon, Brandon, Jamario, Oscar, all these people that we looked up to featured on Sophomore Notes and Ballads.
Yeah.
And just from the ramen section to the Sophomore Notes and Ballads, and to the next project, Expulsion's Anime and a MacBook, he always had a really tight thematic structure behind his projects. They always tell a story over the length of the project. And so, yeah, let's talk about how you progressed even further away like after sophomore notes, after the ramen section into EAM?
Well, if I'm being perfectly honest, I would say that after sophomore notes, I started to shift my focus from a production standpoint more into really a technical standpoint.
Cool.
Because I don't know if you know this, but I was working at the Bantam Walker Theater Center for like the duration of high school, and that was even past Crispus Attucks. So I worked there pretty much up until like Carpe Diem years.
Right.
And so I went away from working in studio, producing tracks, to really mixing live shows and incorporating lights with all of that. And so I got to see a bit more of sort of the business behind, you know, not just music, but just sort of entertainment industry.
Yes.
You know, and it wasn't just concerts. It was like talks. It was, I think we had the senator come through for one of those. We had, talk series. We had camps where people would, they would sort of do performances.
Yeah, I remember I helped with a play
things.
at Attucks.
Oh yeah, and a lot of different things that incorporated sound. They incorporated lights. They incorporated people. They incorporated understanding a production from beginning to end, knowing your role, being able to execute that role front to back. And so that sort of taught me a little more discipline into the art. And so by the time I worked with Elijah on another track, like I had gone from, not just understanding, okay, now we need to record and now we need to mix and edit, to, okay, we need to know the process from beginning to end. Let's line it up. And then once we get in the booth, we're just going to execute.
There you go.
And I didn't really master that until another 3 years. Like I had to graduate high school, and then we got to college, and I started, working with Rex until I finally mastered. Okay, this is a process. This is what I need from you, and then once I get that, I need this much time, and then you'll get this. Very, very procedural, but it helps me to do my job. Yeah, and it helps an artist who just wants to just do cool stuff. Yeah. To know that you get this much time to do cool stuff, and then I get this much time to do all the stuff that you don't really ever see. So
yeah. And something interesting about that natural progression is that it was driven by motivation at different stages of your development. Oh yeah. And I tell people, friends, and I'll tell my audiences all the time that your time is more valuable the younger that you are. Because if you're trying to pick up a skill and a trait, it takes that time. It takes those years of, okay, I've mastered this, or I'm getting on the path of I've learned this, I'm learning this. Absolutely. I've mastered things I've learned before, and now I'm seeking out new ways, like you were saying, to understanding a broader depth of the process. Oh yeah. And integrating yourself in different avenues, and then, like you said, building the discipline, getting the skills, and then, like you saying, executing. Yeah. And so that's why I think this interview is really cool, because I've known you as a facilitator for a lot of different things, and it's cool to hear about like how you got to where you are now. Yeah. Then, so you were about to transition though, and I think it's a natural one. You started to work with Rex, and Rex became part of the Skytop too. Yeah, that was fun. Drafted him into the fold. Now I've known Rex as long as I've known Elijah, for like 10 years. Yeah. You happened to meet him in college. That's actually not true. Well, yeah. So let me go back a little bit. So the first time that Rex and I actually met was actually through Matt Wilson's and if you remember Eric Williams, HMZ. History Makers. Yeah. So freshman year of high school, these two, I would call them like local producers. They started essentially a movement for themselves. It was a personal business to make music, but also they sort of incorporated a youth element of mentoring, teaching, where they brought, I think it was like 6 or 7 or maybe 8 of us from around India. It wasn't just people from Crispus Attucks, it was a few people, and sort of brought us in and tried to teach us essentially the industry, the music industry, and what it takes to have a label and to run a label, and what pieces you need to make music and get it out there. And it was successful for a little bit, and then at some point they just stopped paying the bills. But I don't want to digress too much, but at that time, Rex Avent, aka Brian Jones, was a part of that,
And, you know, unbeknownst to me,
we can't use that man's real name. People don't. If you were to, people know this man is Rex, as he is his image.
But unbeknownst to me, 4 years later, we would meet again as, you know, mutual friends, and we both needed we both needed a roommate in college, and so, you know, I knew you and Breeze, and he knew you and Breeze, and it was weird that we never connected more outside of history, because we even ran into each other at IUPUI and all that stuff. But he needed a roommate, I needed a roommate, and we both just kind of like fell into each other's lives.
I remember calling Rex because I knew you needed a roommate. Yeah. And I said, hey, who are you living with? At Rex, bro. I don't know. I'm just gonna live with somebody. And I said, I want you to live with my boy Griff. And at this time, I didn't know that y'all knew each other, like, you know. So, and then, okay, I get off the phone with him. I call you. I'm like, bro, just trust me on this one. You got to live with Rex.
I'm pretty sure he remembered me before I remember him, which made me feel really bad. I remember going to his open house. Yeah. You know, graduating from high school. I went over to his mom's house. I met Stokely. I got to meet Trey and a few of the other his friends, and got to meet all his family all at once. And you know, they all kind of look alike, which is really fried. Now I'm thinking about all the stories he told me about his family, and I've met all of them at some point. But I just remember it's like, yeah, you know, we did History Makers with Matt. And I was like, huh, you were there? And you know, 5 years later, we're best friends. But
Rex has an insane memory.
Yeah, it's right. Because, and you know, to give myself credit, he looked completely different.
Oh, surely.
Than he did 4 years previously. You know, he had dreads down his back. You know,
he may have just been starting twisties.
Like, way bigger. He apparently did boxing. You know, all the stories he's told me, but like he was completely transformed from the way he was 4 years previously. And I mean, even now he's sort of transformed even again. But us going in together was really good, because he is a phenomenal writer. I mean, outstanding. And getting to live with him sort of re-sparked my interest in producing and being a part of the musical aspect of you know, audio production.
I'm trying to think, like, what projects were you guys working on freshman year? I don't think any freshman year. Right?
They weren't really projects. He always has so much written at once. And so a lot of it was just, what can we record? I remember freshman year specifically was a lot of me getting back into production. So I was making, you know, like my songs. It's the only way to really describe them, just things that I make. And I don't know what songs I actually made freshman year. I didn't make many.
You make compositions, man.
I think that's a better way to put it. I spent so much time on any one song. Like, I spend months at a time on a song, and then I'll release it, and then it'll just kind of just be in the void, because it's so different that it's hard for anybody to really do stuff with. But that freshman year, we recorded a few songs with a few different people. I know we went to Collins, we recorded Breeze, we met Hunter Lowe that year. We got to record with Brandon, you know, may he rest in peace. I mean, we did a lot with a lot of different people. We met a whole lot of different people. And I wouldn't say that I ever really made a name for myself, but if I'm in the room, I can always record somebody. And that sort of is my thing. It's like, yeah, we can record. You know, Aaron's got the mics. Like you said, I'm a facilitator. I got the mics. I got the
know-how.
I got the know-how. I got the computer. Like, if I'm there, it'll happen. So that was really dope. But after freshman year, once we actually got out of the dorm and we actually had the house set up, it was a lot easier to facilitate making music, especially when Wiley became a part of the scene. Because he showed up, and it was like watching Wiley come in, because he had always known music. This is Wiley Coyote, just to give y'all a background.
Yeah, give him a little bit of background.
Wiley Coyote, now, and I don't know if he would call himself an EDM producer. I would call him an EDM producer.
I think,
I mean, but he's just a phenomenal guy, and he's got a
links will be below.
He's got a deep love for music, and so I think his story is classical. You know, taught classical piano from the age of 4. He idolizes his grandfather, who I believe he's named after. And he's even got like a tattoo of some piece that he saw his grandfather orchestrate or something along those lines. And so, you know, his passion moves me, you know, sometimes to tears, because he's just
Interesting.
he is so in love with what he does. I mean, it's so much fun to watch him and Rex get together, because they'll just like immediately just like you sort of see, you know, like you ever seen Jimmy Neutron has like the brain blast in the inside of his brain. When those two get together, it's like a musical brain blast, and you'll feel it, and you'll kind of like see the notes in the air of just like anything that they could create.
They're on the same wavelength for sure.
I wouldn't say that they're on the same wavelength, but they definitely resonate, and they push each other to new, like brand new boundaries. But yeah, so he had a deep musical knowledge that Rex and I sorely lacked. And Rex, I mean, he's a master at writing. I think I call him a poet by trade, because
he
did slam poetry, and you know he can don't get me wrong, he can spit, but like it moves you more than what I would consider a typical rapper to do.
Sure.
And you know, he loves to have his verses, like his actual poetry verses in his songs. It's just like, okay, this is Rex being dramatic, but those are the parts that really stand out.
Yeah, like the Daydreamer, there was a lot of poetry either before or after.
Absolutely.
I think it's both opened and closed with poetry, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and as always, I had the gear and I had the technical know-how. So the three of us in the room for, I think it was the 2 years maybe 3 years that we lived together. I think it was 2. Yeah, 2 years that we lived together. 2. I mean, it was just any and everything. Tetra was obviously a big one.
I was out. You were reading my mind. I was going to say, okay, and then we get this crew together and we get Tetra.
Tetra's the big one.
So tell us about Tetra. And Tetra, I think, is technically it's Rex's third project, but... Right?
Yeah, I can't believe I skipped over the big one, which was the Daydreamer. I skipped right over the Daydreamer, and I feel so bad to skip over.
So you weren't like an integral part of the Daydreamer.
I was, and I actually had a few productions on the Daydreamer. But here's the thing, and
dope.
Here's the thing, yeah. My problem is that, especially working with Rex and Wiley, is that I'll get so into every song that I can't even remember the names. I'll remember like it's funny. It's really weird, but it's like a problem that I have from like doing this too much is I remember the waveforms. Like I remember the instruments and the sort of the ups and downs, and I'll know the sections, but I won't remember the names of songs or even the order, which is funny because sometimes I have to force Rex to like tell me the order of the songs because he won't pick. But when the whole thing is done, I don't see a whole fixed project. I see like individual files with individual pieces. But anyway, yeah, so the Daydreamer came before Tetra.
Right.
Just so y'all know.
Yeah.
And the Daydreamer was Rex's, I want to say his first complete musical package.
Yeah.
It was
I've never heard his first project.
Yes.
He said he released it at the time and then took it down and no one will ever get it.
Okay. But the Daydreamer was, I mean, for all intents and purposes, is his first public release project. And I think for me, it was great to see him complete the process of actually getting everything together, because he's so, how to describe him? He's such an artist, and he's so caught up in the art that it's sort of like the managerial or administrative processes of actually getting something done. They just elude him.
Right.
And you know, I'm all about the technical know-how, and Wiley's all about the music compositional stuff.
Right.
That the three of us are terrible at getting the actual administrative. So like getting a release date and getting a schedule and getting files done on a specific time and having art for it and having videos for everything, like all the stuff that a manager would normally do. I mean, it was the three of us, and we really just wanted to make music, and we did, but we never. It took us so long to finally release it, but we did. It was a huge win. I think there was like a release party at the house. My memories are kind of blurred because I don't know.
It was at your apartment though.
Yeah. But it was. I mean, it was awesome, and I think it had really good reception.
It did.
And
his cult of personality projected it far.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I just, even thinking about Dope, which is one of the songs I produced on there, like that was a huge collaborative effort. I think I kind of felt like Kanye in that session, because I
Nice.
remember putting down a skeleton and getting everybody in the room. Was like, all right, I got this, and I know I got this like kind of idea for this song, and I mean everybody just kind of like came over to the keyboard and started adding stuff in. I remember like Breeze put on some like 808s, and then Wiley came on and he just did like some piano shit, and the song just sounded amazing after that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, my ideal vision of like the Skytop Collective is like mugs come together and just touch it. They just
so like
touch the
during that
song.
breakdown where it goes doom 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 and then that crazy doom, doom, doom,
Yeah,
that's them.
yeah. I was like, oh, now this is hot.
Uh-huh.
And then of course, Dope 2, which I don't know if it's on. I think it's on. I don't know if it's on. It's definitely not on Tetra. I think it's just one of his released songs.
I didn't even know if he's released it or not.
Yeah, I mean, he's got songs that are awesome, and you know, like I said, I've mixed a lot of them, but like they're not included in packages. They're just sort of released songs,
Right.
and maybe not even released songs, just songs he performs, which is when he really shines, is when you see him.
Oh,
live.
so Two Dope is that's when he had the Breeze feature.
Yeah.
They performed that live. I know that
Oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I think they've released it on SoundCloud, but great song.
all of his great songs, man. And
I mean, and he is a masterful performer.
yes,
Yeah, he, like you were saying, slam poetry, and he's had a lot of time on the stage, and he's a big, confident person.
absolutely, very
Yeah.
charismatic.
I've seen Elijah grow as a performer and change and adapt how he performs to the type of vibe that his music has now.
Yeah.
And like seeing his latest shows, he gets in the crowd, he's dancing, he's doing
Oh, yeah.
a lot of movement.
Yeah.
With Rex, he's there, he's like a tower, and you can't do nothing but marvel and like look up. He's almost sedentary because, well, the music is moving everybody else,
Yeah.
and he's performing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I think it's really cool. I think it's really interesting for our audience to think about, like, this happens naturally, but it takes a lot of hard work, and you know, you can go away from the process, you can deviate from the process, but we're all building and growing, and
Oh, yeah.
we're all still pretty young. I mean, Elijah's even younger than us, so it's going far. So getting into that, so we've talked about the past a little bit here, well, the whole interview. Let's talk about like the future. You know, you're helping me audio engineering this podcast. I wouldn't be able to do it without you, because me, in terms of the Skytop, I've always kind of been the oddball out, because I'm the only person that's not doing music. I'm the person who, like, okay, I'm making forays into like very small into fashion design.
Yeah.
And I can do photography, and I have niche things that I can contribute. We had a failed idea. We wanted to do a magazine,
Oh,
like a short
yeah.
run magazine,
I
and I
remember
mean,
the
I
mag.
was totally invested in, because I went to school for business.
And you were driving a
I
lot
really,
of that.
yeah, it's just getting us together for all the things we wanted to write and the pictures that we wanted to
Yeah,
have.
it
Like,
would have required a staff, and we weren't.
Yeah.
We're not in it. At
Yeah.
the time, we definitely weren't in the staff
yeah,
mindset.
we were. I mean, a lot of us were busy, so
Yeah.
because successes are just as great as failures. Taking into those things into account.
I would say that the failures are probably even more important.
Yeah, especially if you assess them properly and
Yeah.
think about how you can do to change them. But getting into our future, it's like now that I'm doing with Jada and Justin, I'm finally putting myself in not in a leadership position, but a more position in the front.
Yeah.
Like, whereas I would always just be in the back and maybe not even have a place at all.
Absolutely.
And I think the great collaborative effort that we can do, marketing with one another, working with one another, building on each other's strengths, is something that I really am excited for. So we're going to be doing this podcast for the long haul. It's about to be really awesome. What other things are you looking forward to, or looking to get into, or are there new things besides the podcast that you're thinking about these days?
Well, if I take 4.0,
Right.
because you kind of mentioned it before, but I sort of, at some point, especially during college, I sort of transferred myself from a musical technical role into a sort of technical facilitator role, and I found that I fit much better into a position where I could essentially provide the ability for, you know, not just musical people, but people that needed essentially audio equipment. It sounds bad, but like I was sort of a, you know, come in and rent a microphone kind of guy. Like I became that person. And it really showed me that when I think it was senior year right before we left, and I had like $2,000-$3,000 worth of gear, and I just sort of dispersed it between the people who I thought would benefit from it the most. That was Wiley C, Breeze, and Rex. And I basically just said, you guys are still doing music. And at the time I hadn't done anything since Tetra, which was 2 years before.
Okay.
And basically said, hey, since you guys are still doing music, I'm not really doing music, and I know that when I look for a job, it won't be in music, so take this and use it. And so for me, 4.0 was sort of a hat, and at that time, I was taking that hat off and sort of like, you know, just putting on the shelf. I know that this is something I can do, but in my everyday life, this isn't something that I can necessarily use. And so, I mean, the podcast, as an example of a future thing that I'm planning to do, present and future, you know, this is somewhere where I can come and put on my 4.0 hat,
right,
bring my technical knowledge in. I can use it. I could set the mics up. I could make sure everything sounds nice and crisp. I can get this, you know, sounding good and looking good. And this is somewhere like, I mean, whenever I get to put that hat on, I'm really excited because this is a passion that I love. This is one of those, like, this music and audio is I told somebody this once, it's something that I would prefer not to get paid to do because I love it so much that, you know, money sort of dilutes, you know, the way you think about it. Don't get me wrong, give me some money, I'm just going to spend it, you know. Nobody's going to say no to money. But, I mean, there's the expectation that when you get paid, there are certain things that come with that money.
Yeah.
And so when I'm doing musical endeavors or audio technical endeavors, I try to bring a creative aspect to it, and so I don't want to be burdened by, you know, other people's expectations. Don't get me wrong, like I definitely want to bring quality to it, but I want to be able to have, you know, freedom that, you know, sort of in my head money restricts, but you know, there's the podcast, and there's also just sort of an opportunity to teach if possible. I don't know if I need a PhD to like show people what's up, but there's
absolutely not. Of course not.
There's lots of scenes around Indy that could benefit from, you know, just having somebody else. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of people that know what I know, but just being in those scenes and seeing how I can participate and sort of just get my hands on, you know, different stuff whenever possible. So nothing concrete. I keep my eyes open. I go to a few different places, but I mean, like I said, this is a hat that I can put on whenever I want. You know, it's every now and again, like my friend Ola, who I mentioned before, she's getting into trans music. She was telling me about, you know, the DJs and all the stuff, and you know, even the podcast that I did with the lady on the Far East Side Community Council is like, whenever I mentioned, hey, I've been trained to work with audio equipment, like that sparks people's ears. It's like, hey, can you help us with our audio equipment for our podcast? It's like, yeah, you know, those are opportunities to meet people, opportunity to network and just get to know and you know, just do different things and get to know different people. So it's just something that, I don't know, maybe it's something that just makes me interesting, but I don't have things that I'm looking to do specifically, but whenever things come up, I can definitely, you know, offer myself to be a part of it.
I think that's really interesting, especially for a lot of people to hear, because, you know, our society really pushes us to capitalize. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with money, but it's kind of you use like a Dave Chappelle logic where, you know, Comedy Central wanted to get him in with so much more money to keep running the show, but it came with all of these different restrictions and expectations. That it became less of, well, he described it as, you know, it wasn't fun anymore.
Exactly.
It wasn't like an atmosphere that he was doing what he loved, and so he decided to walk away from that, and people thought he was crazy. But trusting the process and doing something that you enjoyed doing, because he describes, you know, after he came back, he would just hit comedy clubs like he used to and do little shows here and there because it was something that he thoroughly enjoyed. And he had made some good money, and now you come back in a couple of years, you see the past couple of years, he's gotten way more money than he could have if basically his argument is like a selling out type thing.
Yeah.
And just kind of trusting the process. And if it's something that you enjoy, the doors, like you said, the doors open because you're networking, you're having opportunities to like meet people and basically work pro bono. But that's the interesting thing about life, is that certain opportunities come based on how you insert yourself.
Yeah.
You know, the type, because another theme of this interview I would like to point out is the people that influenced you along the way. Breeze, Rex, the people who were in the mentorship role for you, E-Rock, Matt Wilson, you know, and then it all coming together. And they're not like things that you're projecting for, but now we got the podcast going. I think you have an opportunity to work with whoever you want to work with, given the knowledge that you have. And I think that's just really interesting for people, especially younger people, if we have younger people in our audience to consider. It's like building skills. And it's not just the audio engineering that's the skill. It's like the principles of discipline and hard work, and really stretching your mind to think about things in a different light and have different experiences. It just enriches your life, and it's not always about the money. And I think the people you've met along the way really have like done that for you.
Yeah.
And some people like are kind of despondent, they're depressed, they don't really feel like they're going anywhere with life. But there are people all around, and there are interesting things we can get into that, you know, will project you into a fulfilling type. Fulfilled lifestyle. And
music was always fulfilling for me, but I don't know if it was if it was just me, but early in I kind of identified like I would, and this is just part of my character, I would have to work a lot harder than I would necessarily say that I'm comfortable with to make the type of living that I was looking for with music. Like I said, I love it, and so what I recognized was that I didn't want to burden, or rather, I didn't want to change my perception of what I love by trying to make a living off of it. And so that's why I sort of put it in the backseat, because like I want to always love music, and maybe it wouldn't have changed if I said I'm going to make music full time. But for me, it was I can make a ton of money doing something else, have a ton of free time, and make music. Yeah. And that made, I mean, at 14, that made perfect sense to me. Yeah. And it sort of turned out to be true, because now, you know, I make pretty decent living. I have a lot of time off and still doing music. Yeah. So
you didn't pervert it. You didn't turn it into something that it wasn't something that you wanted it to be.
And I never wanted to blame music for the reason that my life wasn't what it needed to be.
Very interesting.
Maybe that's just a psychological way to think about it. Of course, it's always the person's fault, but you know, for me, it was I could easily see myself resenting the decision to ever do music if it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to. So I was like, man, I could make money doing anything else and still love music for free. So
that is a really interesting takeaway for people. I think it's definitely an interesting takeaway for me, because I'm contrasting it with how I'm considering my path, whether it's the clothes or this show or the books that I'm going to be writing. Those are all things that I have a deep affinity with. Yeah. And to hear you talk about, like, it may have been a situation where you resented the passion initially, or, you know, not initially, but then, you know, if it didn't work out, or things weren't as easy, like you're saying, to get money, and you'd have to work 3, 4, but maybe 5 times as hard.
Yeah, and it might even stem from me actually starting to feel that at one point, especially when I think it was right after sophomore ballads came out, sophomore notes and ballads. It was, I can remember it, you know, kind of clearly. There was just a point where it was sort of like a teenage envy kind of thing. Elijah was like really doing well at what he was doing, which was the writing and the production, and I wasn't doing so well at what I was doing, which was, I mean, sort of just production at that point, because I really wasn't engineering much when we weren't recording. But like, I just remember hitting a wall musically, because I wasn't trained in music at all. which is why production was so hard for me. It was just sort of like, okay, I can do these cool things with the mixer and stuff like that. I can make these neat sounds, but I didn't actually have any music theory. I didn't actually know how to play any instruments, so it was always like just playing around the keyboard, and every now and again I get some cool stuff, but I didn't have any musical knowledge. And so at a certain point I felt not knowing enough to make music, and instead of going to learn music and actually try it, I couldn't afford lessons at the time. I was just very upset. I remember being internally upset, and I picked up a few different hobbies because of it. And eventually when me and Rex met in college, it was sort of like reinvigorated, because there were just more opportunities to learn again. So, but ultimately I just decided, instead of feeling that, I could just, I could do what I'm good at, which isn't musical composition. I know a little more music theory now, but it was just the on and off. That sort of detracted me from wanting to do too much composition.
Right.
I studied a lot of composition, and now, like, I know what sounds good, but I don't necessarily know how to make something that sounds good. I just know it's like, yeah, this could use more air. Or I could do the mixing to death, but I probably couldn't compose as quickly as most people, because, like I said, the actual musical knowledge to like just make something out of thin air, it's not something that I have, which I've just made my peace with that.
Yeah, but I mean, your compositions are really interesting, and they, like you said, they're pretty different.
Yeah.
So it's unique. So
yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not something that you're dependent on. It's not something that you had to push yourself and kill yourself over.
No.
Man, that is very, very interesting. 4.0, as we learned, is not actually a person. It's just the hat.
It's just a hat.
It's a hat.
It's a couple of hats.
Yeah, it's a hat that's filled with all kinds of knowledge and things that Aaron Griffin, the person, knows. But that hat comes on, then it's like, all right, let's get to work. Roll up the sleeves.
I might have to commission for that hat to actually like have that 4.0 hat.
It would be funny too, because it would look, just like you saying that, it reminds me of Chance's like the three that he has on his hat. It's like that'd be anyway. Now we got something to think about on that one right there. But that is the essence of a unique individual given a unique opinion, and that's what the What Do You Know show is about. Now we've learned who 4.0 is and how it's different.
Yeah, and actually I'd like to share this, because even though Elijah sort of proposed the name when he did, I had I had objections to it, because I was like, nobody wants a corny ass name like 4.0 because of their grade point average. I tried to come up with like an alternative meaning for the name 4.0, and it was so stupid. But I mean, I'll own up to it. It was my idea.
What was it? Okay, we got some rare facts here. I never heard of this one.
I changed 4.0 from the GPA, which is just easy to name off, because it was 4.0 to meaning sort of if you can think about like versioning, like when software comes out, it's like version 1.0. And so I tried to reinterpret 4.0 to sort of mean like looking at the future state of whatever something is. So always taking something from what it is to that next level, right? And so 1.0 is always like an alpha or like the current build, and then most things go like 1.1 or 1.2 or something like that. So 4.0 is like a sort of very forward looking, just something that can't really be seen or felt right now, but it's next level. It's like even past tomorrow. Like what is that next thing that we're looking at? And at the time that we were talking about this stuff, it was very fitting, because this was before sophomore notes and ballads. This was like, this was below the dirt. Like we were 6 feet in the ground of like the musical world.
Sure.
And so it was super metaphorical in that we both knew that we wanted to do this and do it well. And no matter what it was that we were going to make at the time, which was becoming ramen section, at different levels, we would always step it up to be something new. And I sort of took it on, like my mantle of 4.0 was to sort of be one of the parties that was like primarily responsible for finding how we could get to that next level. And I'd like to say that I'm a credit of having really good ideas at really pivotal moments.
Yeah.
It's probably an Aaron thing and not a 4.0 thing, but we can just throw it in there.
Right. No, exactly. We're seeing the difference.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen many times where like it was just the smallest thing, and we just throw it in there, and that's sort of like the essence of 4.0 is like finding those key moments to just take something small and throw it in and explode it to the next level. So always looking for the next thing, not like an A&R or anything, but just like I don't know, I guess a visionary. I mean, we're all visionaries in a sense, and I think that's what 4.0 really is. It's a sense of a technical, artistic, creative visionary.
That is a great place to leave it. You know, we're wrapping up 2019 here. It's been like a really interesting year.
Yeah.
Let's do some fun, quick questions. Like, what was your favorite thing to listen to in 2019?
2019, Schoolboy Q's.
Schoolboy Q?
Schoolboy Q's album, and I'm trying to think. I don't think it's Crash. I think it's actually Blank Face. I've been listening to a lot of Blank Face this year. A lot of Blank Face. And I actually might have to check Spotify to make sure that the song is Ride Out and Eddie Kane.
Okay.
Eddie Kane has been my man. If I'm in the car and Eddie Kane comes on, I'm like, man, I need to get off the road because I'll act a fool on the highway when Eddie Kane
Act a damn fool.
Yeah, man. It's a lot of Schoolboy Q, a whole lot of Schoolboy Q this year. Also a lot of EDM music that's not really specific. I got a Rocket League playlist on Spotify. It's just called RL. But whenever I play the game, and I play the game a lot, I'll put that playlist on, and it sort of has done something to my brain because Rocket League is all about driving cars fast. So now when I'm in the car, if I feel like driving quickly,
you put on some Rocket League,
or the adverse effect is that if I turn on the playlist, I'll start to drive quickly, and that's sort of dangerous. But like, I don't know, it's like an adrenaline sort of thing for me now. I love a lot of the songs on that playlist, but Eddie Kane is actually in that playlist too, so that's why it comes on a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any artists that you're either have heard is going to drop in 2020 or like you would like to see drop in 2020?
Man, I couldn't even answer that question.
Yeah.
I live on a rock, as you should probably know. And so I always hear about stuff like 2 or 3 months after it happens.
Sure, but like just you personally, like we haven't had a Kendrick in a while. We haven't had Isaiah Rashad
honestly,
in a while.
I would like for Frank Ocean to drop something that is like reminiscent of like 2014-ish, because like don't get me wrong, he's dropped a few songs, but they're all kind of like this like mumbly thing he's doing that isn't really cool. I want like a
that isn't really cool.
I would like something in the spirit of Channel Orange, really badly, and I know it's not gonna happen because he's kind of done with music now. But
really,
if Frank Ocean could drop something in the spirit of Channel Orange, or even in the spirit of the Lonnie Bro collection, like that would be phenomenal. And it's sad because it's like asking an artist to like be 10 years younger. It's never gonna happen.
I know, that's the thing.
It's never gonna happen.
We're experiencing that with all like reason E-Jazz is their musical has evolved. Flacco, his music has evolved, and I remember just being there when they started, and then where they're at now. It's like a very like sometimes it's a nostalgia thing. Sometimes you're like, man, I miss that type of old flow, or and then like and then you can go to the bigger levels like Kanye. You know, I mean his satire with the song I Love Kanye, that freestyle that he had on Pablo. You know, I miss the old Kanye, straight from the go Kanye. Like, what more meta Kanye thing can you do than to rap about the thing that they're criticizing you for, and do it in such like a brilliant way. I remember I was watching, I don't even watch SNL, like really I don't. It was just on, and I saw Kanye was on, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stick around to like catch his musical performance. He performed that, and I didn't know it was on Pablo. I don't even think Pablo was out yet. And I was just sitting there on the couch like mind blown. Like, this is the shit that people are talking about him and new versus old sound. And I was like, man, he just destroyed that whole thing because, anyway. I just find that to be so funny and very amusing for sure. So, Frank, I know you're listening.
Frank. Yeah, I guess a more realistic thing to ask for. So if Kaytranada had a 2020 drop, that would be amazing. Kaytranada.
That reminds me of like a Mick Jenkins too.
Yeah. I haven't really been on Mick, but that makes me think of a ZZ Gibson. If a ZZ Gibson had 2020 drop, that would be fire. Let's see who else. I just had his name on my Denzel Curry. If Denzel Curry had his 2020 drop, but I know he just dropped an album, if I'm not mistaken, this year. So that might be a bit much to ask for. But Denzel Curry, Duckworth, he just, and I don't know what it is about Duckworth, but his music makes me think of, especially recently, it's like late 90s. It's kind of, I don't know, man. He just dropped a song called Crush, and it makes me think of the Black Eyed Peas so much. It's such a good sound.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Comparison.
But I mean, it's just like, it's like dancey, but it's bouncy, but it's also like he's rapping. It's cool. It's a cool vibe. So Duckworth, and maybe Earth Gang. I could definitely fuck with the Earth Gang 2020 drop.
Yeah, I'd have to say I want a Danny Brown. I want some new Danny Brown. I do. I yearn for some new Danny Brown.
Man, I like Danny Brown, but whenever I listen to him, his voice just like...
Well, and that's the thing, too. A lot of people don't take the time to listen to the full album.
It's good. He's
good.
And
it's like he has different pitches. Depending on
but his,
the flow he's trying to do.
His main voice, right? Yeah. His main voice.
Well, no, hold up, though. Like, when he's just spinning it without the drastic... It's pretty low. I mean, it's pretty cool.
I mean, even the regular voice is like Danny Brown. His voice, it's funny to me. And sometimes his bars are not funny, and so
I think the same thing about Tyler the Creator, like in terms of his voice and it being funny to me.
That is true, but Tyler the Creator's like the things he says sort of like take you out of like any funniness. They kind of like, what the fuck did he just say?
Yeah. But okay. Anything else that you would like to say about this whole 4.0 show? I think I learned a lot personally too.
Did you?
I mean, yeah. I think it's a really cool mindset that you have when you address like just that type of persona. It's really just a persona. Because like for instance, like as we were known about Breeze, he's marketing, he's mixing, he's mastering, he's writing, he's producing.
Yeah. He's
like that full package, and he's out in the world and. Like, but Breeze is still it's still like a rapper's image.
Absolutely.
For instance, Rex, it's the opposite parallel. He is Rex. He is the artist.
He is Rex,
what
and
is
Brian is his other persona. Yeah.
Yeah. What's on the music is in him.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes out, and so I think that you're on a different. You have a different perception.
Absolutely.
Of what you contribute. I think that's really cool.
The last thing I would say is my persona is what it is just because of the nature of the role. Like 4.0 is always a job. Mm-hmm. It's always like it's always a task. It's a very task oriented thing. Like, hey, Griff, can you mix down this song? Or hey, Griff, can you take a listen to this and tell me what you think? And that's usually, it's always like it is an understanding that I have, a certain set of experiences and a certain skill set, that allows people to depend on me for a very specific thing.
Yeah.
So
me
it's
for
like,
instance as well.
Like people hit up Griff, when they want to party. People hit up Aaron when they were worried about me.
And when they hit up 4.0.
And when they hit up 4.0, they got a question about music or audio stuff.
They got a job.
Or they want me to get them a DAW, or sometimes they want me to download some illegal stuff.
Hey, man. Hey, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, but like I said, not a lot of people know 4.0.
Right.
But sometimes people find 4.0 accidentally. And that's sort of like the magic of the persona is that he comes out when that domain of knowledge is needed.
Yeah,
so
proper environment.
Exactly. Like, 'cause like I said, my friend Ola, she didn't know 4.0.
Right.
But if we ever make music together, she'll get to know 4.0, and she'll probably never know the name 4.0, but she will know the persona that is 4.0, just because. When people start talking about music and audio stuff, I really do, like, I just have this mindset, and it completely transforms my mode of thinking and my train of thought, and like I said, all of those experiences bubble to the top, and so 4.0 is that collection of experiences and knowledge.
Yeah. Well, on the What Do You Know show is hosted by Rio. I'm thinking that people will get more Griff than they will 4.0.
They'll probably get more Aaron than they will get Griff.
Okay.
Yeah, Griff.
But my point is notwithstanding, it's that the audience, as you're the co-host, you're an integral part of the show. They'll get to see the side of you that isn't 4.0. That's like kind of my bigger point.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's a more behind. It's a task thing, and
well,
but now y'all know.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sitting next to the mixer.
Right. I know.
I'm sitting next to the mixer, so the hat is always in the show.
Right. But it ain't in the shot though.
When we're talking about the subject matter, it'll probably be more Aaron than it will be 4.0 speaking. But yeah.
And that's a great place to leave it. I think we're going to wrap it up and go and play some Pokemon Snap on N64.
Yeah.
This has been the What Do You Know show. Always question what do you know. This is Rio and Griff signing out.
Hey.
Bye.